Hey guys, welcome back to another video, and today I want to show you how to make these very easy and simple fishing jugs that will last a long time and are easy to store in a milk crate, which is going to make it easier to use in a boat, a kayak, or any other way you have of getting to the water. Over 5 to 7 years of jug fishing, I've made 200 or 300 different types of fishing jugs of all different types and varieties. This is one of the first ones I ever made. I made about 100 of these, and all it is a plastic bottle that's been painted, a little bit of line, hook and sinker sits inside. But a few problems with the plastic bottles is simply if you don't have the cap tight enough, it will leak, it could sink, you don't have a mass metal line capacity, and if you're using different bottle sizes like I was, because I was just getting them from anywhere I could for free, then they're not incredibly easy to store, and there are better options. But for $1.50 a piece probably now, to get one of these, it's really cheap to make these, and they will last a couple of trips. But after using those for a little while, I ended up making these particular jugs. This is called a tattletale jug, and the reason for that is a tattletale. You have a piece of rebar that sits inside, and when it sits on the water, on the foam end, it lays flat. But when a fish comes and tugs on this end, that piece of rebar inside here goes to the bottom, and that jug sits upright. This makes it easier to indicate when a fish is on. It's easier to see from a distance. There's a couple of benefits. Now, to make one of these, I think these were probably 2 or 3 years ago, probably about $1.75, $2 a piece for the 2-foot long PVC pieces. This is about $5 to $6 to make. Not very cheap, and if you plan on even having 20 of them, you can see it's pretty expensive quickly, but they do a great job. A few of the drawbacks though, other than the price, is that they sit high like this, and if you have these sitting in your boat as you're going down the highway or whatever, they do have a tendency to just flip over. They can make a mess of the boat. You got to go pick all that up. So a few drawbacks, but they do last a long time and they're very durable. And that is why I came up with this idea. This is basically the tattletale jug, except there's no rebar in here because it will not tattletale, given that the foam is the same size as the entire piece. And it's a little bit cheaper. This is roughly $2.50 to $3 a piece to make, but it sits inside the basket. So when I'm traveling down the road, these will sit inside. They should not top over because there's very little wind resistance, and it should be a lot more enjoyable to be fishing with these in the future. Now that I've explained why I think they're such a good design, let's go ahead and make a couple, and I'll show you the steps and the tools you'll need to do so. I like to use milk crates because they're very durable, easy to carry around, and they have the perfect dimensions for these particular jugs. All I did was measure from side to side on this particular crate. Most of them are going to be very close to this though, and it's roughly 12 inches. Now, if you take into account the caps, and I've already measured all this out, you get another 1/4 of an inch on the cap once you put it on both sides, so that's 1/2 inch, and then you have about another 1/2 inch for the eye. The PVC I cut is 10.5 inches, which seems to be the perfect size and allows it to be relatively snug with just enough wiggle room to make it easy to get to. This is 3/4 inch PVC. It does really well and gives a nice snug fit to those pool noodles. I'm just going to measure 10.5 inches, and while it's not absolutely necessary, if you do have one of these oil-based Sharpies, they really do come in handy. They work really well. Makes a nice visible line for you to cut on, as you can see there. Another thing I do, since I don't have any vice grips or anything like that with me today, I have a piece of rebar inside this PVC, and that's just going to help hold it a bit more steady. Obviously it's farther back than where I'm cutting, and while you can use a Sawzall or any other tool that you have available to you, I'm just going to use a simple hand saw today. Start a nice light cut, and let the saw do the work. In this case, I've already got the perfect size, but if you didn't, all you would do is now you would measure your pool noodle to 10 inches, make a mark, and simply cut through it. One of these metal saw blades actually works really well for cutting into this foam. Doesn't take much at all, and as long as you don't build heat, you won't have to worry about melting it or anything like that. Once you have your foam and your piece of PVC, you can see it's going to be a relatively snug fit, which is why I use the 3/4 inch. You're just going to pull and twist it on all the way through. Once you get towards the end, you might have to just force it the rest of the way. And now you have a little bit on each side where you can push your caps on. Now the eyelets I've been using for quite some time are just these Everbuilt 208 zinc plated eyes. I haven't had any corrosion issues. This jug is again one of my 3-year-old ones, and that eye looks perfectly fine and healthy. Maybe the tiniest bit of corrosion starting right there, but that'll last 10 to 15 more years, so I'm not terribly concerned about that. Well, all you gotta do is you take your cap, and I use a 5/32 drill bit in this case, and I'm just gonna line it up relatively center and just slowly get a pilot hole drilled. Once that pilot hole is drilled, just take your screw eye, don't let your drill fall down and everything. You're just going to slowly twist it in, get it started, and then just use a small screwdriver. You don't need anything too crazy, and just work it the rest of the way in. And you already have a pretty good mechanical connection in this case, but with that glue in there, it's a very strong connection. I can guarantee you that if you're using up to about 120-pound line, the line is going to break before this eye or this PVC plastic is stripped or gives way. And I'll show you a quick example of that now.
So what I think it is? Ooh. Yeah, it is. All right. He's off. That's a 115-pound test. He broke it. So, well, there you have it.
Alright, I'm not going to go much further. I just have that eye to where it's just starting to get to the base. On the inside, you can see that screw is all the way in, and there's not any gaps along the edge. When we go to glue this in, it's going to be a very strong and secure bond all the way through. A little bit of surface prep when adhering anything really does go a long way, so I'm just going to put a little acetone on that paper towel, clean off these edges a little bit. Doesn't need much. Go through this cap, just wipe around the edge on that cap for a second. Given that it has a very fast evaporation rate, I don't have to wait at all for this to clear out. Now a little bit of primer, and you do want to go ahead and get primer. It does help with the bond. Instead of putting it on the noodle side, I'm going to put it inside the cap. This is the way I've done it. It's a lot less of a mess, and it seems to work as well as anything else I've tried. Once I have that nice and primed, you can see there's a little additional primer in there. I'll go ahead and just pour that back in. I'm going to grab the glue now. Simply just wipe it along the edges in here. Doesn't have to be perfect. Just try to get glue on as much of the surface as possible. Put that to the side. If you have any excess, just wipe it off. And then take it, put the cap on, and screw it. And that's going to allow you to get as much surface area as possible with that glue. Let that set for a little bit, put a little downward pressure to make sure you have it seated as far down as you can. And that side is ready to go. It'll need probably about 15-30 minutes to dry, but I won't be using them till tomorrow and usually wait 24 hours before use anyway. Same process on the other side, a little bit of acetone or some type of cleaner. Wipe that surface Now I'm ready for just a hint of primer on the inside of this cap. Pour any excess back in. Then comes the glue. Press it down and twist. And that's it. This is ready to add the line, hook, and the sinker on, and it'll be ready to fish. The knot you decide to do is, again, personal preference. I like a Palomar knot, so I'm going to come through on the jug eye, give myself plenty of slack on my tag end, take my finger, put it through there, and all I'm doing is give myself some more space, creating a loop. You will see there's that loop there. I'm just going to wrap it through 3 times. And that's all you need. That'll give you plenty of strength on this thick line. Not a whole lot of tag in, but I'm just going to cinch it up, wet it, and pull down. And that is a very strong knot with very little tag in, and it's not going to go anywhere. When it comes to these lines, I've had a lot of good luck with what's known as a bumper rig, which is simply a weight right here, hook there, and then the weight can just go freely up and down the line. Problem is, I have these relatively small weights, and you may run into this issue too, where they just have small openings. So all I need to do is find a drill bit that's just barely larger than the opening. I'm going to put that in the drill. Grab a pair of vice grips and just hold the weight in. You don't need much weight, you just need enough to where if you have a boat that's floating a little bit, it'll put it down. Take the drill and I'm just going to lightly run it through this hole to open it up some. And you will lose a little bit of weight, but again, you don't need a whole lot of weight, just enough to get your bait to the bottom. Okay, that eye is open up a lot, and you'll see the significant difference. I'm trying to get this line through. Now I open up to 1/8. Even with a little bit of fraying, it goes right through, makes it a heck of a lot easier. And then for circle hooks, I'm going to use a 4/0 circle hook, thin wire hook. It's just what I have, and these 4/0 hooks really are a good size for a lot of fish. Now, again, personal preference. I like an offset hook, which this one is just a little bit, and I like to do a snell knot cinching, and there's plenty of really good tutorials on how to do snell knots. Well, that's a jug done and knocked out. All I got to do is I'm going to come up to the top, wrap once around the top, and then do a couple wraps along the body. Take my hook, sink it into this styrofoam, and that's it. It's done and it's ready to be used.